What is up, world? Bakerman Brad here, and I've got a special treat for you this time. We're going to be looking at a game brought to us by Nexon and inspired by a very, very popular anime. If you haven't figured out which one that is yet, well, I'll tell you in a little bit. But for now, we'll be taking a look at this adaptation of a first-person shooter that lets you cloak, run around, stab people, shoot people, blow things up, just like any others, but with a nice added flair. And if you're ready, we're going to take a look at Ghost in the Shell: First Assault. Alright, now that I'm done being dramatic, let's talk about the game a little bit. So, first thing I want to mention is that this is the early access phase of Ghost in the Shell, meaning you'll have to pay to get in right now. However, it is geared to go free to play, so let's keep our fingers crossed on that. Besides that, it is going to be your rather basic first-person shooter with a really nice skin of Ghost in the Shell and the components of a really interesting skill setup that allows you to have something that most first-person shooters don't really have yet. And that's going to be these skill syncs that we'll talk about later. However, this one being Team Deathmatch, there's not very many game modes yet. There's a lot of development going on. There's still several characters that are being developed, and there's a lot in the works for this game. That looked like it hurt. Now, for the maps that they have out already, they're all kind of tightly packed and pretty easy to run into your opponents very quickly. So you've got to always check your corners because you could spawn on top of an enemy. It's happened to me a couple of times so far, and that's one of the only things that I've seen that kind of is a little annoying, that you could literally spawn behind your enemy and really have an advantage if you're paying attention and wipe everybody out. So there's going to be some things that they polish up later on. And that guy probably should have killed me, but hey, I'm not going to complain. The game looks really polished, feels really nice, very solid, like I was saying. And I really feel that they've done a very good job with what they've got already for the skeleton, and I'm excited to see what comes up later on. Now, one of the other cool components that this has is the dive. So, when you first load into a match, you have the opportunity to check out the map in kind of a Matrix-esque kind of a feel here. Now, you can't shoot anything, and there's obviously not as much texture to it, but one of the biggest issues that you find whenever you're learning a new game is trying to figure out where the hell you're supposed to go in a map. Well, they solved that with the dive. You have a few seconds to run around, choose your loadouts, figure out what the layout of the map is, and get an idea of what your first move is going to be. Now, there's going to be only enough time to check out a very small portion, but it gives you a really good advantage of learning whenever other games kind of just throw you in the dark. One thing I've noticed about Ghost in the Shell is that when you're running around, there are times that you'll find no one. And it's not because the map is too big, it's because everyone's running around as an actual squad or an entire team because of the skill sync. You have to be within a certain range to actually activate other skills. So when you do find the enemy, there's going to be a lot of them. You think you see one? Assume there's several more around the corner. So always go in thinking, I'm going to have to fight a lot of people, which isn't that hard when you have an arm launcher. However, there's usually someone behind you. Speaking of arm launchers, that's one of the few skills that is only going to affect the user. Unless, of course, you include the people that, are on the other side of the arm launcher. Now, another skill that doesn't have a skill sync is the Sentry Turret. And as long as you come up behind it, they're relatively harmless. Now, for these individual skills, when they reach the Tier 2 setting after killing enemies and getting the intel, they have a added buff to the skill. The arm launcher shoots 2 rockets, the turret has a wider cone of range, and the sentry drone actually sends out 2 sentry drones. So, there are several different components of the skills that are utilized by individual skills and the team-based skills. But just because cloaking is a team-based skill sync, doesn't mean they're not going to be alone when they come running around a corner. So, keep in mind, I've said it before, check your corners in this one, and you'll at least have a chance of surviving longer. Now, another component about this game is that there is no health regen unless you're using the nano gel skill from one of the other heavy characters in the game. But with all this talk about skill syncs, I'd like to point out that they're stackable. So they can be incredibly fast, cloaked, and with armor. So you've got to really be careful of your skill sync management, which is a really cool factor about this. Which also makes it important to have multiple operatives to bring to the table whenever you're getting into a match. So when you get into the main menu and you're checking your operatives and your armory, one of the cool things I've noticed is that they'll show the enemy you skin, because you'll be choosing the same operatives that your opponents will. So it's a cool little feature that's not necessary, but I think it makes it stand out a little bit more. When you get started, you'll get a operator license that you have to choose your main operator. So as you're trying to pick which operative you're going to use, check the info tab, and it'll give you a little bit more description on what skills they have, a little bit about the outfits and upgrades, which we'll talk about in a second. But also, if you're wondering about the dramatic music I found, well, here it is. One of the cool things about the game is they give little bios about each of the operatives. But before it gets too dramatic, we'll move on. So, it also explains the skills, shows you a little bit about the skill sync, and the distance that you have to be to activate skill syncs. So, there's outfits right now for only the main character of the anime, Major Motoko, but I can almost promise there's going to be more since it's something you can buy in the market actually. Another cool component about Ghost in the Shell are the Cyberbrain, Physical, and Ability sockets. Now, these are unlocked as your operative is being used in the games, and you have up to 5 slots for Cyberbrain and Physical sockets and 3 for abilities. These are earned as you are victorious in matches. Now, one of the cool things is after you've mounted the item to a socket, they actually have a durability and will burn out. So you don't get a permanent advantage unless you play a lot. So it's kind of a reward for playing the game and gives you just a slight edge over whoever might be joining in. Now, as for the actual weapons, you get to bring in 3 loadouts every time you go into a match, and so it adds a little bit of versatility, but there's not too many weapons to choose from right now, so you kind of don't have to worry about your options yet, but it's a good idea to have something like a machine gun, a shotgun, and a sniper rifle just kind of set up and ready to go, just in case you do run into a nice sniping spot. Now, as for customization, there are only a few skins out there for the weapons yet, and down the road that'll be something that you could probably purchase, but don't worry about that as of right now in the early access. However, there are a lot of items that you can attach to the weapons, and that's going to be one of the things that separates the old gamers for the new gamers in this one. The longer you play, the more attachments you're going to be able to have, and those are going to be utilized across the board. However, like I said, there's not very many skins yet, and there's only a few weapons that you can buy, so there's not too much of a dramatic change in power compared to one weapon from the other. But these little equipment add-ons is really where it's going to be at. There's barrels, there's scopes, there's muzzle flash, and just a whole bunch of different little things. For now, there's not too much to worry about in terms of skins for the characters or the weapons, and the only item you can buy is an operative license, which actually you get one at level 3 and level 5 after you've unlocked the character and get playing a little bit. Like I said, there's only one other melee weapon, and there's a few other little throwables, but that's pretty much everything in the customization weapons section. So, after you choose the operative that you want to use and are preparing to dive into the game, there are 3 game modes that you have to choose from. Team Deathmatch, which is the one that we were playing when I got started, the Terminal Conquest, and Demolition. Now, right now, the Demolition is a little bit one-sided, so I'm going to show you Terminal Conquest because it's a little bit more entertaining right now, and also requires the most level of squad interactions, because it is basically a capture the flag domination combo. So, you'll want to use all the skills. Sync up with as many as you can, and do your best to keep them from taking over a terminal. That right there. Once captured, you get a think tank. Now, these guys are beasts. They're going to be very difficult to kill and give your team a huge advantage if you capture the terminal first. However, on the flip side, if they get it first, they're going to have a very big advantage as well. But that's not a permanent advantage, because they can hack the think tank, which is another component of the anime that they've utilized in the game. If you hack the think tank, it will take significantly more damage and be easier to kill. With that said, however, make sure you don't get caught up trying to hack the think tank and not be mindful of your surroundings. Now, every now and then you get lucky and a ledge blocks a grenade or here or there, but if you're not paying attention, you can set yourself up for quite a horrible kill streak. I'm not going to tell you how many this is, but I really enjoyed this little streak right here, which goes to show that you have to be mindful of multiple objectives in this particular game mode, being that there's the think tank, there's the terminals, but there's still people trying to shoot you in the face, repeatedly. Now, I didn't think I was going to get any more because they were all dead, but I was wrong. And I almost got one more, but remember how I said they all respawn on top of you? Yeah, it happens in this one too. But I'm not terribly upset about it because it does give a little bit of the advantage back to the defending team if they happen to get pushed all the way back. Now, briefly, I'll mention Demolition Mode. They've got a little bit to work on this because, unfortunately, it's more of a bait in camp. Once you get through here, you get 2 different demolition points, just like any other demolition map. However, it also has a seek and destroy component to where if you kill someone, they're dead forever. So you have multiple layers in the demolition, making it very difficult for teams to be very balanced. And like I said, after you set the bomb, if you get it set, the defenders have to come to you. So once you get the bomb going, you just find a good camping spot, and as much as I kind of hate myself for doing it, it's the easiest way to win in Demolition. So this one has some work to be done, but I'm not terribly worried, being that this is still early access. And one of the cool things is, in the main menu, they have a feedback forums section. So this is one of those things that you can mention. Also, let people know that they throw grenades like a baby. But I'm excited to see what's going to happen to this one. But that's all she wrote for Ghost in the Shell First Assault. I was really excited to see what they've got already set up in the early access, and I'm really excited to see what's going to be coming down as they develop more. So, get in the game if you can. Let them know what you'd like to see in the forums. If you have any questions or want more information, feel free to check out the game profile page on MMOHuts.com. If you haven't already hit the like button, just because it's Ghost in the Shell alone, feel free to hit that. If you haven't subscribed yet, boom, there's one more button for you. But with all of that said, this has been Bakerman Brad showing you Ghost in the Shell First Assault. And gamers, I'm going to let you get back to gaming, and or going to check out the anime. Whichever one.
I knew you'd be an asset on this mission. Get prepped for their counter.